Hello and welcome to the Interlinks by Center for New Economic Studies at OPGen, the Global University. A little bit about Interlink is that we're a podcast that tries to approach key issues by looking at it through like various perspectives. And we try to do this by having conversations that revolve around the ideas of society, polity, or economy. And for today's episode, we will be looking at the group of artisans known as textile artists. And these are the artists who are a group because of their commitment towards their art, because they were unwilling to give it up to large factories and large scale production, are now suffering with a lack of importance or are suffering through ignorance. And so, because they're not getting an appreciation for their art, the art is also starting to die. And
Right.
so, through today's conversation, we want to look at how we can help appreciate this art and how can we aid in this cause of rediscovering these artists. And for this, we have somebody very special with us, Miss Devika Dahiya, who has not only done an extensive amount of research on this topic, but she has also brought this research to life by finding the Trunk Door organization, which is helping aid and rehabilitate a number of textile and handloom artisans. Thank you so much for joining us today, Ms. Dahiya.
Thank you so much, Nandini. Thank you so much.
I think I will just get into the podcast right away. My first question is
Yeah.
just to sort of let our listeners know what is the Trunk Door organization and what is its sort of history? How did it come to be?
So it started, so this year, June, it completed like 5 years. And it started during the COVID time so it was during the COVID time when, as I used to travel a lot. And I knew a small cluster of artisans because I've always been very close, directly, buying my own, home stuff or buying my own apparels or materials from those artisans. So when the COVID hit, these all artisans were working for big brands in the market, and they were suddenly left alone. So that is when they kind of, two, three, clusters from different parts of the country, they approached me, and, they wanted that, how can I help them during COVID? Because all these big companies, they had left them without any orders, because at that time, there was a lot of credit system that was going on. So neither they were getting their payments, neither their product was being picked up. So that is when the trunk door came into being, that I started it with a very small cluster of about just 7 to 8 artisans, where, we made a small WhatsApp, group, which had relatives, family, friends, where, they used to send me the pictures and I used to just upload it on those groups, and they directly used to procure it from the artisan so that they could get it, because my main aim was that, we need to remove the middleman. So this is how actually the trunk door started, gaining popularity. That there was no middleman. We used to directly connect the artisans to the client, so that, there is no, misconception about the pricing, or they don't get the due that they actually, you know, should receive. So that is how actually the trunk door came into being.
You said the artists themselves approached you. So how were you able to like expand this reach and how were you able to build a connection with these artists that you were working with?
So generally, like in every field, how it is that, there's a small circle. So when, you start working with the small cluster, slowly and steadily you start building up, they start giving you contacts, because generally all these artisans, the art form is generally into their family, it runs into their families. Generations have been doing it, further generation, extended family are, say, for example, if it's hand block printing. So say one person in the family might be procuring, or the material for them, the other must be doing the hand block printing, the third person must be doing the dyeing part for them. So it all runs into the family. So we started connecting with those, we started with those 7 8 artisans, and then they started giving us further contacts about further artisans who wanted our help, who wanted that domestic and that international reach. So this is how we started. And obviously then I started traveling a lot, meeting these artisans, because it makes a lot of difference when you actually you have a face to yourself, you have a face to the organization. So that builds just the trust with them. So slowly, we started with about 7 to 8 artisans, and today we are working with almost 150 artisans around the country in different kind of art forms. You talk about north, we talk about south, we talk about northeast, east, west. We are working with almost every art form visible in the country.
I think, but so you said that you've reached out to so many artists from across the country, but I
Right.
also feel that artists, because of recent how the world has been going, they're also used to being exploited, or big
Yes.
industrial firms try to take over their art or something like that. So how were you able to gain their trust and sort of like build that sort of trustful this thing?
Right. So see, my trust comes a bit later because, after the COVID situation happened, which I personally felt was, that was an eye opener for actually all these communities and the artisans. Because previously they used to work on a lot of credit, because big names in the company, they come with a credit name, they come with a trust name that, the payments will not get delayed, they'll be paid on time. But when COVID happened and, neither of the companies, they came forward, these artisans, from the time COVID has hit, they have just stopped working on the credit basis. Now it has become a very transactional thing from them that, okay, if you're placing an order, there's a certain amount of advance you need to pay. And when we are dispatching the order, the full payment has to be made. So, which has made them very, very aware after COVID because they had really gone through a lot, which I have, actually seen it from my own eyes that, there were times that they were struggling even to get the basic needs sorted in their family. And plus, obviously, being a very small brand in the market, it's always very important to have that personal connect with the artisans. It's not, it goes, when you start personally working with them, that relationship that you build goes beyond, just, buying or selling or making a product with them. It becomes way much more. You just become a part of their family because, that is how, as I mentioned earlier, that, they start connecting you with other people. They start telling you different kind of, art forms, how art has changed, how it was, generations back, which, if you're not taking that personal interest, in what they want to tell you or what you're learning from them, they keep it very, very formal and they keep it very transactional. But, if you're there with them, you're helping them out, you're listening to what they have to say, because there are very few people who are actually genuinely interested to know about the genuine art, where it all started. So they get very happy, and this is how the trust also builds with them, that you are there. You're not one of those, who's just giving a call and just placing an order, and you don't want to know, what is happening in their life, any kind of struggle that they're facing, or any kind of help that they would want. And so this is how we built that relationship with all the artisans. And we built it to a level that we've also started a small initiative, which is a skill and a development, where we carry out these small workshop where we directly call the artisans. We give these workshops, to students, to faculty, or anybody who's interested in. And obviously we tell them to exhibit their products directly. So again, that that our whole concept was that we need to remove that middleman, who are actually getting the profits out of the artisans. And artisans, even in today's date, are still working for that bare minimum wage income around the country.
You also mentioned that the artists themselves reached out to you, but
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, when you set out with the trunk door, what was your goal and how far do you think you've come along it?
So see, my goal, when we started Trangdor, my goal was, that the artisans should get what they deserve, because there are certain art forms in the country, people generally see very finished products, but the kind of hard work that it takes, for an artisan, the kind of work still, like people say that, the working conditions have gone better. But when you actually go on ground and you actually see the working conditions, yes, somewhere definitely a lot of people have made that initiative to make the working conditions better. But still, there are still a lot of artisans whose working conditions are not that great, because they come from small villages where there is no electricity, where there is not no proper digital means of reaching out to them, or they are not that educated enough. So our main motto was that we need to bring artisans in forefront, and not keeping the organization or organization's goal to be forefront, or it's does not has to be very profit oriented, that we are making a product and the artist should be known. And this is one of the reasons, as I said, that we started with doing this artisanal alchemy initiative that we started, is because that after a few years, how do you validate that you're genuinely helping artisans? So that's why we started that we directly bring the artisans, that please like hear their story, hear about the art, what they have to tell you, directly buy products from from them. Trangdor is just a mediator, just to connecting the final person to the artisan. It's again, you further how you develop a relationship with them is completely up to the person who we've connected with and the artisan.
Yeah, and this idea of like building a relationship with the artist or having a connection and trust and not solely working for profits. I'm sure of very few organizations in the country are doing something like that. So, what do you think, like, because of these things, how do you think the artists view your organization? And like, do you think the organization has a certain role to play in their personal lives as well?
Yes, definitely. From the time, we started, doing these workshops, and we started connecting these artisans to the people directly, who want to buy their product. It gives a great motivation for them, because as you said that, they have been exploited all these years. You talk about small brands, you talk about big brands in the market, right? They get the products made, put on the tags, and, they're selling in the market, which I'm not saying is anything wrong or right, but yes, they have gone through that journey, and it's still continuing. So for them, this was a great motivation point, because whenever we do these kind of workshops and initiative for them, and we have these small exhibitions with them, they just get so motivated that we are taking care of starting from their travel to their stay to having an exhibit where they get to actually tell their story, where they tell about their community, where they tell about their work. So that's the feedback that I personally get from the artisans, that this has that they till date, so many of the artisans have never stepped out of their village, and we as an organization were able to help them to step out of the village, actually talk about themselves. There is an audience to listen out to them. Otherwise, it's always the brand talking about the artisans, that what the brand is doing or what their initiative is, or how have they helped. But here we are getting the artisan directly. So yes, language is definitely a barrier for them, but they take it up as a challenge. So wherever we get these workshops or the exhibits done directly, they have that challenge that no, we need to understand the basic Hindi, or we need to know a basic sense of English, where we can communicate. We've opened doors for them. We've shown them how exhibits, these small exhibits work, how workshops can be done. And it has gone to such an extent that the presentations that we make with the artisans for these kind of initiatives, they've actually asked us, and they've reached out to many other institute and organization, where now they go and present their work domestically and even internationally. So I think so that's a great boost for them, presenting their work directly to the people, because the real story what they can tell. Like, I'll tell you, like, my personal experience. Like, I have no degree in textiles. Whatever I have learned in all these 5 years of me running a trunk door is all from these artisans, just sitting them from hours and hours, understanding the fabric, understanding colors, mixing, how chemically produced colors come into being, how organically we can produce them. Then there are so many issues that they face. There's water management, then there is government interventions, there are private interventions, the copyright issues. So there is just so much to learn with them, that I don't think so that any degree in the world, or even the best of institute, could teach me what my artisans taught me all these 5 years.
You also spoke about how so these artists are given a space to express and sort of convey their stories in these platforms. But art itself is often seen as a form of expression. So do you think these artists in their art or the textiles that they make are able to sort of express certain emotions or just sort of, express themselves in their work?
Yes, definitely. So, like every year, we make different kind of collections. We make a summer collection, we make a winter collection. So, when any day the artisans, so there is a theme of color that we choose, a theme of palettes of colors, we choose for every season. So generally summers are meant to for more pastel colors, and, the winter are meant for more brighter colors. So anytime, if my artisans, they are working on two brighter colors in summer. So, I completely understand that. Or when, come up with really bright colors in summer, so I understand that, there's something not right, that completely they've changed the palette. So it's about just understanding that thing with them, that so you get to know their, that their mood is something very different. So you sit with them and you ask them that, okay, we decided on this color palette, why are you working on this? No ma'am, actually they'll have a story to tell, that it will be, some issue at home, their mood is not correct or something has gone wrong. So that comes in their art form also. They'll suddenly go to dark colors, or they'll not be very precise with a certain thing. So there is, one series of, we were creating an order for these daris, and for that theme we chose, apne man ka. We gave the theme to the artisan was apne man ka, that this time there is no specific design that I personally will tell you, but you need to yourself decide what you want on that dari, like design it. You're like open to design whatever you want. So every artisan who was making that dari, they decided their own color palettes, they decided their own design, and everybody had the story to tell. Maybe a childhood story, maybe a color that they like, maybe a monument they like, or a certain flower, or a certain geometric thing that they like, and they all had stories to tell. So when we took out that series, we also attached a note with that every of these daris, they have a small story attached to it, whatever that story was. So that was mentioned. So definitely, like if you give artisan that freedom of creating something, and you're not putting that creative barriers to them, they in fact, again, as they get really really motivated, because generally, when artisans are working, they give given a particular design, they're given a particular quantity. It's very rarely it happens, when you tell them that, okay, this is a collection that you have to create the way you want it, whatever you want to choose, starting from your material to the final product, it's completely you own it. So so they put that extra hard effort into that it's something like a baby, it belongs to us, and finally when it's going to go to that person, that it will have our own story to tell, why did we create this. So definitely, that creativity, and artist also being creative, that really, yeah, helps them.
I think my next question is sort of derived from a personal experience that I had. So I had visited this sari weaving shop in Andhra Pradesh, and so the artists there were talking about how their children don't want to work in the art any longer. They want to move on to engineering or medicine or something like that. So, like the artisans that you work with, how do they look at their own art? And do they look at it as something that they want to preserve and pass over generations, or are they also moving to other professions? Do they think that their art has not much to offer them?
Yes, definitely. That I completely agree with you. Nowadays, artisans are facing a lot of problem. First, as you said, that the next generation doesn't want to work. They're either more educated, they want to get into a government job, or they want to join a private institute. They don't want to do a simple hand block printing, or they don't want to do embroidery work. Like for example, recently, I was visiting these artisans in Kashmir, and there is a needlework that they do on the Kashmiri pashmina shawls. And when we were seeing them, the artisans themselves, they were like, "Ma'am, this is very very rare now. In next 5 to 6 years, you might not even find these. Because now one of the reasons is the generation next doesn't want to work, because it takes a lot of hours to do this kind of handwork, and take months. Second is coming off the machinery. So now the machines have taken over, because it falls cheaper to the people out there in the market. So they started preferring, okay, we just need the look of it, we need the feel of it, but we do not want to pay a premiere for that. So now a lot of, even in hand block printing, a lot of screen printing has come in. So if a person who's not into the art, or who just wants a simple bed sheet, he or she is not concerned about if it's handmade or not, you're not very particular about it, they will obviously go for a lesser price range. Okay, that if I'm getting a bed sheet for say 10 rupees, why will I pay a premium of 20 rupees? So it's like that. So it's happening in every art forms. You talk about Kashmir, you talk about hand block printing, or you talk about the next generation not wanting to do that. So every artisanal community in India is definitely facing that. Like few months back, I was with my artisans in the areas of Kutch. So there was this Rabadi art that's again diminishing. It's just a very very small village women actually who do these Rabadi embroideries, and now there are just handful of these. I have literally, like, there is this NGO called Kala Raksha there, who have actually preserved the original Rabadi embroidery, because they are of the saying that in the next again 10 to 15 years you might not even see these kind of embroideries, because these are just ladies who we give them these work has to be completed in a certain time limit. And that also, because they are housewives, their children are going to cities, they are working, and they have limited time on themselves. They have their household chores, they have children, they have a family to run. So they have a very limited time and they're very limited women, and it's not passing on. So every community is definitely one or the other challenge they are facing is this diminishing, art, that is now, like that a lot of art forms, a lot of, like, so if, for example, in chicken curry, originally there were 36 stitches in chicken curry, but in today's time it's only 20 to 21 stitches that are used wherever you go, because there are no artisans left for that original chicken curry work that was there. So if you talk to any person, they might even not know that actually 36 chicken curry stitches ever existed. They would know about the very common ones that are going in the market.
That's actually sort of like, I mean, sort of sad to hear, but so like, I think that just directly brings me to my last question for you, which is to like, what are the changes that we can bring in our lives to help aid your cause, and what are the small steps that we can take to help like recognize the hard work of these artists better and perhaps help preserve such art for a little bit longer?
Right. So for this, I think that, people who got into, because a lot of fast fashion has come in, we talk about Zara, we talk about H&M, right? They have their own thing, and, everybody, buys those products. But I believe that, if you're buying those products, you should definitely, make space, in your home or in your wardrobes, that where you can pick up something which is more artisanal based. They're in big, good cities, like, you talk about Delhi, we talk about Bombay, Pune. Even the government is doing a lot. There are a lot of handloom exhibits, there are a lot of expos that are happening through the Ministry of Textiles and other organizations as well, that people should go and actually visit them, because direct weavers and artisans, they are directly coming there. You directly buy it from them. Once you get their contact, you can order it from them directly, because it's ultimately them who are actually making those products. So I feel that I won't say that everybody can do that, but at least if you're buying that, you should definitely, whatever that you like, there is a collection, recently that Zara launched, which had a typical, very much look of the Jaipuri bootas. It was obviously, it was machine stitched, right? But if you like, you know that you have the liking for that, research a bit about, where it's coming from, what kind of art form is there. If that you can, if anybody has interest in all these small workshops or these skill development initiatives, somebody can do that. We can start with a very small step of going to these exhibits, meeting them directly, because as I said, that a lot of organization, government, they have extensive amount of events with them. Like, a lot of people don't know them. Even if they know, they do not want to go them. So I personally would like appreciate if people actually start going, meeting them directly buying stuff from them, rather than going to big brands, spending almost double the amount of money and getting those same products. And when you meet those artisans, it definitely makes a difference. You just add that value to whatever, maybe a small or a big thing that you're buying. That you can only understand when you actually go meet that person and buy that product from them.
I think before ending this discussion, I think from my personal side, I would just like to ask, how did you like? I've been curious about it. Why did you name your organization the Trunk Door? Is there a story behind it?
Yes. So when we were young in my childhood days, so my nani had a typical traditional Haveli where, our all cousins, we used to all get together in our summer and winter break. And whenever you used to go, we all cousins were very excited about, that we all have to spend time together. So we have to sleep in the same room, and, we all have to be together all the time. So whenever we used to go, so my nani used to have, these big tin trunks where she used to pull out all these extra bed sheets and extra quilts and extra pillow covers to give it to us. So that has got a very fond memory for me. So when I was deciding on the name for my brand, that memory was the first memory that came to my mind, that it's something, that coming, all those things coming out of the trunk, and we enjoying that, that trunk will open, and I don't know what not we'll get to see, from my nani's collection. So that has a very fond childhood memory for me. That's why I decided that I need to keep my brand name as the Trunk Door.
I'm really glad I asked that question because it ties up the whole discussion so nicely. It's just like the way you speak about your work shows the kind of passion you have towards it and the kind of work you're putting in for it. So I think like thank you so much for joining us because
Welcome.
you're like the way you're talking. I was listening to you. I was thinking, okay, these are some changes that I can make to help the cause better and just not just talking
Yeah.
about it is of course not enough, and the work that you're putting in is really just gratifying to hear about. So thank you so much for
Yeah.
joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nandini. Thank you.
Thank you.